So, good morning once again. So, today we'll continue with the design and implementation of a simple SIG assembler. Okay, so later we will discuss, if time permits, we'll discuss the data structures and algorithms used in this SIG assembler. Okay. So, in order to illustrate the design and implementation of a simple SIG assembler, so we have taken an SIG example program. Okay, so that is given as input to the SIG assembler. Okay, and then this SIG assembler will translate this SIG example program into the object code. Okay, and so this is the program that shows the source program translated into the object code. Okay, so for the first column, as I said, indicates the line number for reference. The second column, LOC column, gives the machine addresses for each part of the source program. Okay, and then the next columns shows the source statement. Okay, as you know that each instruction in the assembly language, okay, will have the three fields. First one is the label field, then the opcode field, and then the operand field. Okay, and the last column will gives the generated object code. Okay, so this simple SIG assembler makes two passes over this assembly language program, SIG assembly language program. Okay, so in pass one, what it does, it scans the source program for all the label definitions. That means it will assign addresses to all the statements in the source program. Okay, say for example, it starts with the instruction start to indicate that the program name, and also it specify the beginning address of the program as its operand. Okay, and so this will not be converted into object code as it is assembler directive. Okay, and we'll assume that the program starts at address 1000. Then, okay, so from 1000 the program starts. Okay, so starting from 1000 at address 1000. Okay, we have the instruction STL RET ADR. Okay, so the assembler will get to know the length of this instruction. Okay, so on a standard version of SIG, all instructions are 3 bytes only, because the standard version of SIG allows only one instruction format. So this instruction format is 24-bit in length. 24-bit in the sense 3 bytes. Okay, each byte is 8-bit now. Okay, 3 byte means 8 into 3, 24-bit. Okay, so each instruction is a 3-byte instruction. Okay, so once you know the length of the instruction, you can easily get the address of this instruction. Okay, so this STL is a 3-byte instruction. Okay, so then if the program started at address 1000, okay, then what is the address of this instruction? 1000 plus 3 is 1003. Okay, then at this address, which is the instruction, we have JSub RDREC. Okay, and this JSub is also a 3-byte instruction. Okay, so once you know the length of this instruction, okay, you can again get the address of next instruction. Okay, so 1003 plus 3, 1006 will get the address of next instruction. Okay, so at address 1006 we have the instruction LDA length, okay, which is again a 3-byte instruction. Okay, so 1006 plus 3 is 1009, like that. Okay, so in pass one, like that, will assign addresses to all the statements in the source program. So are you getting? Okay, so we'll not generate the object code in pass one. We'll simply go on assigning the addresses, machine addresses, to all the statements in the source program. Okay, in order to solve that forward reference problem. Okay, in order to solve the forward reference problem. So in pass two, we actually translate each source statement into the object code. Okay, so once you know the machine addresses for all the labels, which are the labels in the program. So copy is the program name. Then we have the labels first, C loop, end fill, EOF 30 RET ADR length buffer, RD REC, R loop, exit, select. Okay, these are the labels in the program. Okay, so in pass one, you will get to know the machine addresses assigned to all these labels, isn't it? So what is the machine address of the label first here? It is 1000. Similarly, end fill, it is 1015. C loop, it is 1003. For EOF, it is 1002A. So like that, okay? You will get to know the machine addresses for all the symbols or labels used in the program. So in pass two, we'll actually translate the source program to object code. Say, for example, at line number 10, okay? So we have the instruction STL RET-ADR, okay? So the assembler will get to know the object code of STL. Object code of STL is 14, okay? And what is there is its operand, it is the symbol RET-ADR, okay? Then, so since it has resolved all the address in pass one, okay, it will know the address of this symbol RET-ADR. So what is the address? See here at line number 95. It is 1033. That will be inserted in the object code generation. Okay. So then what is the object code of STL RET-ADR instruction? It is 141033. Okay. Similarly, the next instruction. Okay. So JSUB instruction. Okay. So opcode of JSUB is 48. And what is its operand address? RDREC. RDREC is defined later in the program where at line number 125. See, what is the address of RDREC? It is 2039. So this will be inserted in the assembled instruction. So 48, 2039 is the complete object code of this JSUB RDREC, like that. Next instruction is LDA length. So what is the object code of LDA? It is 00, and the operand is a symbol. So what is the address of this length? Length is defined at address 100. It is 1036. So this will be inserted. This address will be inserted in the assembled instruction. So 001036. So if you observe the object code column, so all the instructions are 3-byte instructions. Okay, two-digit form, 1 byte. Okay, so like that. Okay, so if you follow the assembler functions now, so first function is you have to convert the mnemonic operations code into machine language equivalent. Let's say, for example, STL, as I said, 14, and then the second function is you have to convert the symbolic operands into their machine language addresses. Say, for example, RET-ADR, what is the address? 1033, so like that. And the third function is, okay, so you have to build the machine instruction in proper format. So you completely assemble the instruction like 141033. Okay. And then next is generate or convert the data constant into internal machine representation. Okay. So for example, we have a 3-byte constant here at line number 80. EOF is a 3-byte constant which is defined using byte. Okay. Then convert this one into internal machine representation. Okay. So decimal value of the ASCII code of this character constant. Okay. 45 4F 46. Okay. And then finally, we have to write the object program and assembly listing. Okay. So once the object code is generated, no. So what the assembler will do? So assembler will write this object code onto some output device. So this is called as the object program. Okay. And this object program contains 3 types of records: header record, text record, and the end record. Okay. And these are the formats of the header record and text record. You already know. Okay. So you already know how to write the header record. Okay. Once again, I will explain the writing of the text record. Okay. So observe the format of the text record. Column 1 is the letter T. Okay. And column 2 to 7 starting address in this record. So obviously the program started at address 1000. Okay. So 00100. So 1000 is the starting address. Okay. So start writing this address from the last column. That means column 2 to 7. No? Start from writing from the 7th column. Okay. 0001, and the remaining bits you insert 00. Okay. Then column 8 to 9, the length of the object code in this record. So you leave it blank in the beginning because we have not written the object code till now. starting from the column 10 to 69. So leave it blank. Okay. And then column 10 to 69 starts the object code. Okay. So in one text record, we can write the object code of 10 instructions. Okay. Maximum 10 instruction is allowed. Okay. So then after writing object code for 10 instructions, you can continue the rest of the object code in another text record. Okay. So then from column 10 to 69, so start writing the object code. Okay. So two columns per byte. Okay. So one byte you have to write in two columns. Okay. So 14 in two columns. Okay. So starting from column 10, so it is 1. Then column 11, it is 14. Because what is the object code of the first instruction? So object code of first instruction is STL RET area. It is 141033. So write it here. So 141033. First instruction. So continue similarly. What is the object code of second instruction? 482039. Okay. So 482039. So this cap symbol is just used to break the fields. Okay. Break the object code of each instruction. Okay. So what is the object code of next instruction? So 001036. So 001036. So like that, go on writing the object code. Okay. Up to column number 69. Okay. See how many instructions are there here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So maximum in one text record, you can write object code of 10 instructions. That's all. Okay. So the remaining instructions object code, you continue in the new text record. Okay. That is what they did here. Okay. So starting from the 11th instruction, okay, they have written the text record on a new line. Okay. Again, follow the format again. Okay. So column 1, the letter T indicate that it is a text record. Okay. So what is the next instruction after 00102D? So after 00102D, which is the instruction. So 00102D. So the instruction is STA length. So what is its object code? 0C1036. And what is the starting address of this instruction? 101E. Okay. So this STA length, whose object code is 0C1036, starts at address 101E. So this starting address you have to mention here. See here. So 101E. So previous bits you rate it as 00. Okay. So 00101E. Okay. Then start writing the object code. So what is the object code of this instruction? STLN 0C1036. So 0C1036. So what is the next instruction? JSON WRAC 482061. 482061. Okay. So like that, continue. Okay. Then column number 8 to 9, as I said, it is the length of the object code in this text record, in that particular text record. Okay. So if you consider the first text record now, you count the number of bytes. Okay. From column number 10 to 69. Okay. So you'll get the count as 1E. Okay. Then write it from column number 8 to 9. Okay. So 1E is the length of the object code in this text record. Okay. Similarly, in the next text record, okay, you count the number of bytes starting from column 10 to 69. Okay. So how many bytes you have? 15. Okay. The values are in hexadecimal. Okay. Don't write the values in decimal. Okay. So all the values should be in hexadecimal only. So like that. Okay. So for the entire program, for this our SICK example of program, how many text records are there? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 text records. Okay, 5 text records are needed to write the object code in the text record. Okay. So after writing the text record, so we need to write the end record. Okay. So what is the format of the end record? Bottom. So column 1 indicates the letter E. See, check here. Column number 1, you have to write the letter E, indicates that it is a end record. And from column 2 to 7, address of the first executable instruction. Okay. So what is the address of first executable instruction? 1000. Okay. where do you find the address of this first executable instruction? Okay, as operand to the start assembler directory. Okay, so 1000. Okay, mention it. Start from the last column 0001, then 00. Okay, so 00 1000. Okay, so that is the address of the first executable instruction. So any doubts in writing the object program?
No, sir.
Got it now? Later we'll have some exercise where we
Yes,
will,
sir.
given the SICK assembly language program. Okay, you have to translate that program into the object code like this. Okay, after translating into object code, you need to write the object program. Okay, in this format: data record, test record, and end record. Okay. So that is how the simple SICK assembler converts the assembly language program written for SICK machine into the object code. Okay. Then comes what are the algorithms and data structures used by this simple SICK assembler. Okay. So a simple SICK assembler makes use of two major internal data structures. Okay. So they are the operation code table. Okay. In short, we will call it as OpTab. Okay. So OpTab stands for operation code table. Okay. And another data structure is the symbol table. Okay. In short, it is called as SymTab. Okay. SymTab stands for symbol table. Okay. And there is one variable, so that is used during the algorithm design. Okay. So it is called as LOCCTR. Okay. Stands for location counter. We'll discuss each of these data structures and variable in detail. Okay. Then first is op table. Okay, or operation code table. So what is operation code table? Okay, and how this operation code table used during pass 1 and pass 2 of the assembler. Okay, so as the name indicates, operation code table. Okay, so this op table is used to look up the mnemonic operation codes and translate them into the machine language equivalents or the object code. So which is the first function of the assembler. Okay, so what is the first function of the assembler? Converting the mnemonic operation codes into the machine code or the object code. Then the question is, how does the assembler knows the object code of these mnemonic operation codes? Okay, so the answer is in op table. Okay, so this op table is used to look up the mnemonic operation codes. Okay, and translate them into the object code. Okay, so at the bottom, you can see the organization of the op tab here. Okay, and so in the first column, you have all the mnemonic operation codes, say add, LDS, STL, and so on, and their corresponding object code. Okay, as the value. Okay. So the mnemonic operation code as key and the object code as value. Say for example, if an add instruction is encountered during processing, then this op tab is looked up to see the definition of this mnemonic operation code add. Okay, so whenever it finds it, it will replaces this mnemonic operation code add with the object code. So what is the object code of add? It is 18. Okay. So that is what the assembler has done in our example program also. Okay, and so whenever the assembler has encountered, say for example, the instruction on line number 10, STL. So this STL is the mnemonic operation code. So where did it finds its object code, corresponding object code in the op tab. So it will search the op tab. It will look up for the mnemonic operation code STL. So once it finds it, it will replace with its the object code. Object code for STL is 14. Okay. Similarly, the other instruction. Okay. Okay, and how this operation code table is used in pass 1 and pass 2. Okay, so in pass 1, this operation code table is used to look up the lookup and validate the mnemonic operation codes. Okay, it will just check the validity of this mnemonic operation code. Okay, in the first pass. Okay, so say for example STL. Okay, that is a valid mnemonic operation code. Okay, suppose by mistake if you have uh, done a typing mistake and you have written as SLT. Okay, that is an invalid mnemonic operation code, isn't it? So in the first pass, okay, how this assembler uses this op table is in pass one, the op table op table is used to look up and validate the mnemonic operation code. Okay, it will validate the mnemonic operation code. Okay, and in pass two, what it does? Okay, so this op table is used to translate once it is valid. No, it is this op table is used to translate the mnemonic operation code into the actual machine code. Okay. Say for example, for STL, the mnemonic the object code is 14. For add, it is 18. For LDS, it is 6C, like that. Okay. So next question is whether this process is same for both standard version of SICK and SICK bar XE. No. Okay. So the thing is, on a standard version of SICK, this process, okay, can be carried out either in pass one or pass two. Okay. So looking up the operation code and converting them into a machine code can be done either in pass one or pass two on a standard version of SICK. Why? Because so the reason is the standard version of SICK will have only one instruction format. Okay, so that means it has only one 3-byte instruction format. Okay, not more than that. Okay. So that is why this process can be performed either in pass one or pass two. Okay, looking up for the mnemonic operation codes and converting them into machine code. Okay, but in case of the SICK bar XE machine, okay, it has instructions of different length, isn't it? Format 1, format 2, format 3, and format 4. Then how this op table is used in converting the mnemonic operation code into machine code? So what it does is, so in pass one, that means the assembler searches the op table to find the length of the instruction, because instructions may have different lengths. So it finds the length of the instruction, okay, to be added to the LOC CTR variable. Okay, so once it knows the length of the instruction, no, in past what it does is it will it will try to in pass to this op table we will use to get the information to know which instruction format to be used in assembling the instruction. Say for example, whether it is a format 1 instruction or format 2 instruction, or format 3 or format 4. Okay. So how is the implementation of this op table? So this op table is generally organized as a hash table, okay, an array hash table. Okay, so what is the advantage of organizing this op table as hash table? The advantage is provides fast retrieval of information with minimum searching. Okay. So we usually use a hash table, okay, with mnemonic operation code as key. If you observe the table here, op table. Okay, so here the mnemonic operation code is used as the key, and the object code as values. Okay. And note that this op table is a static table. Okay, so it is written only once. Okay, it is a static table. So normally we will not add or delete anything in this table. So that is the meaning of the static table. Okay, that means entries are not added to or deleted from this table. Any doubt in this op table? So this is one data structure used by the assembler to look up the mnemonic operation codes and translate them into the object code. So next, another data structure, symbol table stands for SymTab stands for symbol table. Okay, So as the name indicates, okay, so this symbol table includes the name and value of each symbol used in the source program. Okay, say for example, if you consider our program now, which are the labels as I said. First is a label, C loop is a label, end fill is a label, EOF, and all those things. Okay, it includes the name and what is the value. Say for example, for the label first, what is the value or address? 1000. Similarly for C loop, what is the address? 1003. It is the value. So for end fill, it is 1015. For EOF, it is 102A. So like that. So this symbol table includes the name and value of each symbol in the source program, together with an indication of error conditions. Say, for example, if the symbol is defined in multiple places or two different places, it is an error, okay, because it is a duplicate symbol. Okay, so example is multiple definition of the symbols. Okay, so the symbol table includes the name and value of each symbol in the source program, together with indication of error conditions. Okay. How this sim tab is used in pass 1 and pass 2 of the assembler. So during pass 1, so what we'll do, all the symbols encountered in the source program are entered into this symbol table. Okay, so which are the symbols encountered in pass 1? So say for example, first C loop, end fill, EOF 30 RET length buffer, RDREC loop. Okay, so all the labels are entered into a symbol table along with their assigned address value. Assigned address value, as I said, for the label first, it is 1000. For C loop, it is 1003. So like that. See the table here, SimTab table here. These are the labels which are used as the key, and these are the assigned addresses to them. So for the label first, what is the assigned address? 1000. For C loop, it is 1003. So for RDREC, 2039. Okay. So in second pass, how this symbol table is used? So during pass 2, the symbol used as operands are looked up in the symbol table. Okay. Say for example, in STL instruction, we are using the RET-ADR as symbols. Okay, so during pass 2, symbols used as operands are looked up in the symbol table to obtain the address which are to be inserted into the assembled instruction. So say for example, what is the address of RET-ADR? Address of RET-ADR is where it is defined at line number 95, 1033. So this value will be inserted into the assembled instruction. Okay, so like that. Okay, and again like AppTab, it is also organized as a dynamic it is organized as a hash table. Okay, and it is a dynamic table. Okay, because it is, you can insert, delete, and search it. Okay. So it is organized as a hash table for efficiency of insertion and retrieval. Okay, and it is a dynamic table. Okay. Entries are normally added or deleted from it. Okay, so this is the symbol table with labels as the mnemonic operation labels as the key and the assigned address as the value. Okay. So those are the two major data structures used by the assembler, and there is one variable, important variable, that is used by the assembler. So this is called as LOCCTR. Okay. Apart from the AppTab and the SimTab, there is a important variable used by the assembler that helps in the assignment of the addresses. Okay, so this variable is called as LOCCTR, stands for location counter. Okay, and to which value it is initialized in the beginning. So this LOCCTR is initialized to the beginning address specified in the start statement. Okay, so for our example, what is the beginning address? Beginning address is 1000. Okay, so this in the beginning, this LOC column is there. No, it is nothing but the location counter. Okay, variable. Okay, so in the beginning, it is initialized to the starting address. The starting address is 1000 here. Okay, and then after that, after the assembler start translating each statement of the source program, no. So after each statement is processed, and the length of the instruction is added to this location counter to point to the next instruction. So that means LOCCTR is equal to LOCCTR plus the instruction length. Okay. So this location counter will keep track of all the addresses assigned to the source statement. So whenever the assembler encounters the symbols, okay, so what this location counter value gives, the location counter value gives the address to be the address value associated with that label. Okay, so the current value of LOCCTR gives the address to the label encountered. Okay. Say for example, suppose if it encounters the label C loop, okay, so then what is the address associated with this 1003? So this will be available in the variable LOCCTR like that. So this LOCCTR keeps track of the addresses, machine addresses. So as each statement is processed, the length of the instruction is added to this location counter, okay, to point to the next instruction. And the current value of the location counter gives the address to the label encounter. So any doubts?
No, sir.
Understood, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay then.
Yes, sir.
So in the next class, I will teach the algorithm of pass 1 and pass 2. Okay. And lastly, this is the diagram.